Chapter 40-41. Ying Yi, who was walking over, saw this scene and couldn't help but look at Du Fan sympathetically. It was true that he wouldn't be crippled, but it was painful. Men were the most vulnerable in this area. If it wasn't painful, Du Fan wouldn't be speechless for a long time. His face was still red. He absolutely believed that his red face wasn't because of shyness, but because of the pain that made his blood rush to his head. TSK, to think that there would be a day when he would fall for her trick. Ying Yi looked at him gloatingly, then glanced at the woman. He was puzzled. Who was this woman? Why was she brought here? Fengjiu had already been carried back to the courtyard by Xianyuan. The monk also turned and left. Only Du Fan, Ying Yi, Ling Shuang, and Yi Feifei were left. At this time, Ling Shuang looked around, then walked up to Du Fan and asked, "Are you okay?" Ouch. Du Fan panted heavily as he glared at Yi Feifei, who was looking at him provocatively. Because he couldn't bring himself to cover his crotch with both hands in front of the two women, he could only clamp his legs together and press his hands against his legs as he gasped for air. "Then I'll take her to rest first. I'll come find you later," Ling Shuang said and nodded at Ying Yi. Then he said to Yi Feifei, "Come with me." Yi Feifei looked at Du Fan and snorted lightly, then followed Ling Shuang and left with light steps. As soon as they left, Du Fan immediately covered his crotch with both hands. Ouch. This woman is so cruel. So cruel. She wants to cripple my manhood. What kind of hatred and resentment is there? So cruel. Who is this woman? Why did you bring her back? Ying Yi looked at him and asked. She came back with the master. She saved the master halfway and treated the master's wound, Du Fan said while gasping for air. After a while, he slowly straightened his back. She looks familiar, Ying Yi said thoughtfully. He vaguely felt that he had seen her somewhere before. She's the love-struck woman when we entered the city, Du Fan said angrily. Hearing this, Ying Yi was slightly surprised. Really? Yes, it's her. I don't know what she's up to, but the red birthmark on her face is also fake. This woman saved the master halfway. I don't know if it was a coincidence or on purpose. Now that she's back, I have to find some time to investigate her background, Du Fan said. Then he asked, why didn't I hear the little master's cry? SSS. That's D. And the fire phoenix and Leng Hua, is, and so, that, teat. When Du Fan heard that it was actually such an arrangement, he finally relaxed and asked, then when will Qi Kong and the others return? They're already at Shanwei. They'll be back once they're done. Don't worry about them, Ying Yi said. While the two were chatting, Xianyuan brought Fengjiu back to the main courtyard. He carefully placed her on the bed and asked, is it an internal injury? Chapter 40-42. Xianyuan looked up at her and said, I won't do anything, I just want to take a look at your wound. Fengjiu was stunned for a moment, then he couldn't help but smile. It's already formed a scar, you just need to rest for a few days and don't pull on the wound, it will heal even faster. I still need to take a look before I can rest assured. As he spoke, he unbuttoned her clothes. Seeing this, Fengjiu felt a little helpless, but seeing the worry in his eyes, he let him be. When his clothes were lifted and the wound on his waist was revealed, Xianyuan's aura instantly turned cold. It was as if frost had descended in an instant, and the atmosphere in the entire room was as bone-chilling as the winter day. The wound is very deep, what did you injure you if not a sword? His voice was low, but one could still hear the faint trembling in his voice. The wound on her snow-white skin was a shocking sight, although it had already formed a scar, the area around it was still slightly red and swollen. The wound was very large, and it didn't look like it was caused by a sword, so what exactly had injured her? Fengjiu pulled her clothes up to cover the wound, saying, "When I was fighting with that old man, I realized that he was very strong. Even the Azura king and the others who were also divine kings weren't as strong as him, so I was always at a disadvantage when fighting with him. When I received a heavy blow from him, my entire body flew out and smashed into a wall, then I was injured by the scattered stone blades that fell down." She spoke slowly, her expression calm, as if she was talking about someone else. She told him everything that had happened on the way, and finally said, "That's all. Fortunately, I met Yi Fei on the way. If she hadn't helped me pull out the stone blades from my wound, the consequences would have been unimaginable." Hearing this, Xianyuanmo's nodded. "Yes, I will thank her." Fengjiu smiled, saying, "This Yi Fei is an interesting person, she seems to have a story, so when I came back, I brought her back. If she can help, let's help her." "All right." As Xianyuanmo spoke, he helped her to sit on the bed, saying, "Rest first. Right now, your body is the most important thing." "That's right, where did you take the child?" Fengjiu asked, her gaze landing on him. When they were fighting, she knew that the child wasn't in this house, otherwise, he wouldn't have fought without any worries. "I asked Ding Yi to find a safe place, and let Leng Hua and the others take the child there to lie low for a while." As he spoke, he patted her hand and said, "You don't have to worry. Huo Feng and the others are also guarding there. Nothing will happen. Moreover, this hidden sect has been uprooted. They won't be able to cause any more waves, so there's no need to worry." 2. Of course, I too. But I've been away for so long, as to this, and to 2. Then you should sleep first. You haven't had a good rest on the way back, you look very haggard, have a good sleep first, when you wake up, the child will be by your side." Xianyuanmo said, still hoping that she could sleep for a while and have a good rest. "Yes, stay here with me," Fengjiu said, holding his hand. Chapter 40-43. After accompanying her to sleep and seeing that she was fast asleep, he took out his communication jade tablet and asked Leng Hua and the others to bring the child back. In the courtyard outside, Du Fan, Ying Yi, and Leng Hua had already begun to tidy up the house. Although some people in the city were watching from afar, they did not approach. Because they all knew who lived in that house. No, perhaps it should be said that they already knew that there were these people in the city. After all, the people that the ghost Dr. Fengjiu had gathered a few days ago had all stayed in the city. They just did not know where the ghost Dr. Fengjiu lived. However, after this commotion, it was hard not to know. To them, they had only heard about the ghost Dr. Fengjiu. They had not personally experienced it, so they did not know if the other party was really that powerful. However, with all the news that had been spreading recently, they knew that even if they had not personally experienced it, even if they had not personally seen it, this ghost Dr. Fengjiu was truly powerful. If they did not know, those hidden experts would not have revealed themselves because of the news, and would not have helped them to destroy that hidden family. Seeing that the house was gradually returning to peace, the middle-aged men returned together, discussing in low voices. "I heard that those who step forward to help will all receive a pill refined by the ghost Dr. Fengjiu. What pill is so powerful? To be able to make those hidden experts step forward to help?" Another person asked. "You don't understand. This is not only because of that pill, but also because of the name of the ghost Dr. Fengjiu. Don't you know? There are already many people saying that the Lord of Heaven and Earth in this area will be the ghost Dr. Fengjiu. To become the Lord of Heaven and Earth in this area, how strong must one's spiritual energy be? And didn't they say that the ghost Dr. Fengjiu was already the Lord of Heaven and Earth in other places? She still wants to take over this place. That's what they say, but I heard that the ghost Dr. Fengjiu has another identity, Feng Xing, and her husband is the destined monarch. If the husband and wife work together, as long as they have this intention, the people from other places will not fight with them for our land. After all, if we really want to talk about it, this place cannot compare to other places. The few of them discussed in low voices as they walked, until they were far away. On the other side, after hearing the order, Linghua informed Qin Xan and had them pack up and bring the two children and a few contracted beasts back to their original house. The place where Ing Yi had picked was quite a distance away, but it wasn't very far. Therefore, it didn't take long for them to return to the house. "You're back. How are the little masters?" Du Fan asked, looking at the two children in their arms. "The little master is sleeping. What's the situation here?" Linghua asked, letting Qin and the others take the child back first. "That hidden sect came to our door, but they were killed by the Yama Lord. We're cleaning up the place," Du Fan said, and looked back, saying, "They fought here, and several walls have collapsed. I think we'll have to get someone to clean it up." "What about little master? How is she?" Linghua asked. Chapter 40-44. Hearing this, Linghua finally felt relieved. He nodded and said, "That's good. You handle things here first. I'll go take a look and come back later." With that, he patted Du Fan on the shoulder and turned to leave. Qin Xan and Bai Qingqing carried the two children to the main courtyard and handed them to Xianyuan Mose. Then they left quietly. When they met Linghua outside, who was about to come in, Qin Xan said softly, "Linghua, the master has fallen asleep." The two little masters were brought in by the Yama Lord. "We didn't see the master either." Hearing this, Linghua, who was about to step in, paused and said, "Then I won't go in and disturb them. I'll go to the kitchen first." With that, he turned and left. Qin Xan and Bai Qingqing also left. Because the house had just been through a battle, it was a little messy everywhere. They had to help clean it up. In the room, Xianyuan Mose carried the two children to Fengzhou's side and let the two little guys sleep soundly beside her. He sat by the bed and watched over them. His heart was full of tenderness. If things were peaceful, they would be like an ordinary couple. They would raise the two children, teach them the principles of life, teach them cultivation, let them learn their skills, and watch them get married and have children. However, no matter if it was her or him, they were not ordinary people. Their lives would never be peaceful. What they lacked most and could not be like ordinary people was peaceful years. Seeing that she came back and stayed by his side and the children's side, he finally felt relieved. However, when he thought of the monk's half-hidden words, he still frowned slightly. What did the monk mean by that? Perhaps because she didn't have a good rest on the way, Fengzhou fell into a deep sleep as soon as she came back. She didn't even know that Xianyuan Mose put the two children beside her to sleep with her. She only woke up when the sky darkened and the two children cried when they woke up. Wow! Wow! As soon as one of the children started crying, the other one started crying as well. Two loud cries rang out, and could be heard from inside and outside the courtyard. She flipped over and sat up, only to see Xianyuan Mose carrying a child. "He's probably hungry," Xianyuan Mose said. Seeing her sit up to hold the child, he hurriedly reached out to stop her. "You still have injuries on your body. The wound on your waist and abdomen is like that. It's better not to hold the child, so as not to pull the wound." "I'm fine. The wound has already scabbed over," Fengzhou said as she picked up the child. Once the soft little fellow was in her arms, he sniffed like a puppy. Perhaps because he smelled a familiar scent, the little fellow squirmed into her arms and stopped crying. Seeing this, Fengzhou's lips curled into a smile. "Look at our daughter. She still recognizes me when I come back. You're her mother. Naturally, she will recognize you," Xianyuan Mose said as he sat down by the bed. "They're still so young. I left them for you to take care of. Actually, I was worried that they wouldn't recognize me if I left for too long," she said softly as she gently stroked the children's hair. Chapter 40-45. Fengjiu smiled and said, "Have them bring some food over. Let's feed the two children first." Xianyuan responded. He saw his son in his arms reaching out towards Fengjiu. Seeing this, he put his son on the bed. As soon as he put him down, the little boy rolled over and crawled into Fengjiu's arms. Fengjiu saw this and a gentle smile appeared on her face. She reached out and carried her son. When she held the two children in her arms, she realized that they seemed to have gained quite a bit of weight. Ah! The two little guys stopped crying. They pulled Fengjiu's hands and stuffed them into their mouths. They cried out, but no one knew what they were saying. On the other side, Yi Feifei, who had slept in the guest room, also woke up. She only woke up when she heard the children crying. After putting on her coat, she walked outside and wandered around the residence for a while. Instead of going to the main courtyard, she first met Leng Hua and Leng Shuang. "You're Miss Yi, right?" Leng Hua smiled warmly. His gaze fell on Yi Feifei's face. He smiled warmly and said, "It's almost time for dinner. My sister will call you over in a while." Yi Feifei glanced at Leng Hua, then glanced at Leng Shuang and said, "They all told you about me. Do you all know who I am?" "Yes," Leng Hua replied. "Your siblings." Yi Feifei looked at the two of them. After a careful examination, she realized that their eyebrows and eyes were somewhat similar. "Miss Yi, I'll take you to eat first," Leng Shuang said and walked forward. Yi Feifei took a step back and said, "Wait, I'm not hungry yet." As she spoke, she looked around and said, "I heard a child crying just now. Do you have a child here?" "Yes, our little master." Hearing this, she was slightly surprised. He's your master's child. She already has a child." "I couldn't tell." Seeing that the two of them didn't speak, Yi Feifei continued, "What is your master doing now? I have something to talk to her about." "Miss, do you know who my master is?" Leng Hua asked with a warm smile. "Didn't she say her name was Fengjiu?" Yi Feifei said, glancing at the two, "Isn't her name Fengjiu?" "It's just a name." "How much do you know?" Leng Hua asked again. "I've never seen her before, so how would I know?" Yi Feifei said unhappily. "I heard from my elder sister that Miss saved my master, and my master agreed to help Miss with something. Since that's the case, why don't we let my elder sister tell Miss about what we can do? What does Miss need us to do?" "You can tell us directly," Leng Hua said warmly. He glanced at Leng Shuang beside him and nodded slightly. "Go ahead and do your work." "Leave this to me," Leng Shuang said, motioning for him to leave first. "Okay," Leng Hua responded, then turned and left. Seeing Leng Hua leave, Yi Feifei was even more surprised. She looked at Leng Shuang and asked, "Who is your master? Why do I feel like all of you are so mysterious? What do you mean by just saying what you need to do? Don't tell me you're omnipotent." Leng Shuang looked at her and said, "Generally speaking, there shouldn't be anything we can't do." Seeing this, Yi Feifei frowned and pondered. "Then tell me about it." Chapter 40-46. Yi Feifei was taken away by Leng Shuang. In the main courtyard, after Fengjiu and Xianyuan fed the two children, Xianyuan took the two children to the small bed and let them play by themselves. "Drink a bowl of soup first. This is made by Leng Shuang. He added medicinal herbs to it and it can help you recover." Xianyuan scooped a bowl of hot soup for her and said, "Be careful, it's hot." "Okay." Fengjiu answered. She took the bowl and blew it to warm it before drinking it. After drinking the soup, she pulled him to sit by the bed and said, "I have something to tell you. I think it's a little strange." "Go ahead." Xianyuan gestured. "It's one of the two things that the Million Buddhas sect asked us to find." She looked at him and said, "The Heart Sutra was hidden by the old man, so when I didn't find the Saraira, I copied some of the Heart Sutra and mixed it into a fake one. But because I also read some of the Heart Sutra, when I practiced later, I didn't know what happened, but the content of the Heart Sutra naturally appeared in my mind, so I practiced it by force." She paused and said, "There's something wrong with the Heart Sutra. It's not so much a Buddhist Heart Sutra, but a Devil Sutra. I'm very surprised that the people of the Million Buddhist sect have such a thing." Hearing this, Xianyuan pondered for a moment and said, "Forced to practice it. If that's the case, then the Heart Sutra should have devil nature. Maybe, this thing was not originally a Buddhist thing." He pondered, paused, and said, "Or maybe it's because the people of the Million Buddhist sect know that there's something wrong with the Heart Sutra, so they can't wait to find it. I also thought about this, but I think that if they don't destroy the Heart Sutra after taking it back, something will happen sooner or later." She remembered that the Myriad Buddhist sect had asked her to promise to protect them for 100 years. She faintly felt that there might be a connection between the two. Xianyuan looked at her and said, "But no matter what, it belongs to them. Now that they have it, they should be the ones to destroy it." "Yes, I know." She nodded and took out the crutch from the space. "This thing belongs to the old man. I didn't have the chance to study it, but I know that the Saraira is hidden in this crutch." Xianyuan took a look at it and said, "This is an immortal artifact. Now that the owner of this immortal artifact is dead, we only need to erase the imprint on it to check it." As he spoke, he gathered spirit force in his hand and wiped away the original imprint on the cane. He then used his divine sense to take out the Saraira hidden inside. As soon as the box was opened, the thing inside was reflected in their eyes. The Saraira in Buddhism, to put it bluntly, was a spiritual bone. The spiritual bone Saraira in front of them was dark red like a bead, with a faint mysterious aura. "This thing is good," Xianyuan said and closed the Saraira. "This kind of thing is a Buddhist treasure. It is said that if you keep staring at the Saraira, different people will see different things." Hearing this, Feng Jiu was slightly surprised. "If that's the case, why did you close it? It won't hurt to take a look at it." Chapter 40-47. Seeing this, Feng Jiu didn't say anything else. He only said, "All right then. Keep this thing well and give it to the monk when we get back." The two of them ate in the room and chatted for a while. Xianyuan told her about the requests of the experts who had come to help in her name. After explaining everything clearly, they asked Leng Hua to call Du Fan and the others to the courtyard to give them some instructions. Because Qi Kong and the others hadn't returned yet, they planned to stay here for the time being and wait for them to finish their work before coming back to meet up with them. In the room, the husband and wife chatted. Xianyuan thought of the monk's strangeness, so he told Feng Jiu his doubts. "I think he's hinting at something. However, when I asked him, he wouldn't say anything. He just said that heaven's secrets shouldn't be revealed." Hearing this, Feng Jiu was slightly surprised. "Is there such a thing?" She thought for a moment, then said, "Our children are under our protection. Logically speaking, they shouldn't be in any danger. What does this monk mean by saying such things?" She paused for a moment, then said, "If that's the case, I'll ask him tomorrow and see what exactly is going on." Xianyuan responded. He was still thinking about this matter. The next morning, after they had eaten in the courtyard, Feng Jiu told Leng Hua to invite the monk over. The monk had gotten up early in the morning to recite sutras. He had expected that Feng Jiu would definitely ask him to come over today, so he had been waiting in the courtyard early in the morning. When he heard Leng Hua's words, he followed him to the main courtyard. "Benefactor." The monk entered the courtyard and bowed to the two of them with his palms together. "Great master, please sit." Feng Jiu smiled gently and stood up to invite him to sit. The monk nodded slightly and walked forward to sit by the table. "Grand Master, these are the relics and heart sutras of your Buddhist sections." Fengzhou took out 2 items and placed them on the table, saying, "However, there is one thing I don't understand, and I hope the great master can explain it to me." Her hands pressed on the 2 items, but she did not push them in front of him. Seeing this, the monk looked up at her and asked, "Benefactor, what are you asking about? Does Grandmaster know that there is a problem with this Heart Sutra?" Fengzhou asked directly. Hearing this, the monk was stunned. "Why do you say that, Benefactor?" "Because I wanted to swap this Heart Sutra from the hands of the sect leader of the hidden sect. I copied down the Heart Sutra and mixed in the contents. However, unexpectedly, after reading the Heart Sutra, I was not forced to practice the Heart Sutra in the Heart Sutra. Furthermore, this Heart Sutra was so domineering that it did not seem like a Buddhist Heart Sutra at all." As Fengzhou spoke, her gaze fell on his face. She asked, "Does Grandmaster know the reason behind this?" The monk's expression changed slightly and he murmured softly, "Amitabha, this poor monk does not know. This Heart Sutra is a sacred object of Buddhism, and without the permission of the Holy Buddha, no one can practice it. This poor monk has never practiced it, let alone read it, so I do not know the reason behind this." Seeing that he did not seem to be lying, Fengzhou said, "Since this is the case, it is best that Great Master report this matter to your Holy Buddha after you take this Heart Sutra back, in case anything happens in the future." As she spoke, she pushed the 2 boxes forward and said, "Grandmaster, please take a look." The monk took them and opened them to take a look. He closed them and said, "These 2 items are not bad." Chapter 40-48. Fengzhou smiled. She looked at him and said, "Great Master, I still want to ask you something." Hearing this, the monk looked at her. After a slight pause, he said, "What does Benefactor want to ask?" "Leng Shuang." Fengzhou called out. Ling Shuang and Leng Hua carried out a baby bed. The 2 children, one in pink and one in white, were playing in the bed, giggling from time to time. Seeing the 2 children, the monk's expression changed slightly. He looked at Fengzhou and asked, "What is Benefactor's intention?" "Great Master, you are an eminent monk of Buddhism. You have the light of Buddha around you. It is clear that your cultivation is not shallow. Therefore, I would like Great Master to take a look at my children and see if they have encountered any great calamities during their growing years. If so, how can we resolve them?" Hearing this, the monk sighed softly. "Benefactor, why do you have to make things difficult for this poor monk? What do you mean by making things difficult? Is there something that you can't say?" Fengzhou raised her eyebrows. The monk looked at her and saw that she was staring at him with her clear eyes. It seemed that if he did not give up, she would not let him go. Helpless, after pondering for a while, he could only say, "Benefactor, do you know that the Emperor's star is a solitary star?" Fengzhou's voice rose slightly. She looked at him in confusion. Xianyuan Mo's eyes darkened when he saw this. He slowly put down the cup of tea in his hand. After looking at the 2 children, his deep gaze fell on the monk. "Since Great Master has said so, why don't you explain it more clearly?" His deep voice slowly sounded with a unique magnetism. The monk looked at him and said, "The fate of the Emperor's star was originally a solitary star. It was only because of the appearance of the Phoenix star that there was a change in fate. The Phoenix star does not belong to this world. Therefore, although the child born between the 2 of you will be blessed by various cultivators at birth, it is still unknown whether the child will survive." His calm gaze fell on the 2 people's faces. Seeing their expressions become serious because of his words, he sighed softly and said, "This is a heavenly secret that cannot be revealed. Moreover, even if this poor monk tells you, this tribulation cannot be avoided. If you know, it will only increase your worries. It is better to follow the will of the heavens and let nature take its course." Fengzhou's heart sank when she heard the monk's words. If he had said something else, she might not have taken it to heart. But he said that she did not belong to this world, but she was a person who did not belong to this world. Hearing this, she felt a moment of panic and fear in her heart. She was afraid that what he said would become true. And now, it might come true. No. Even if it was true, she would not allow such a thing to happen. Xianyuan Mo's face darkened with seriousness. He tightened his grip on the cup. Because he lost control of his strength, the cup broke with a crack. The tea splashed out. The broken cup cut his palm. Blood also seeped out and dripped onto the table. Fengjiu saw this and immediately came back to her senses. She grabbed his hand and said, "Let go." Xianyuan Mo glanced at his hand, then slowly let go. Seeing her slightly furrowed brows as she anxiously and worriedly helped him clean up the shards in his palm, he couldn't help but feel guilty and apologetic in that instant. Chapter 40-49. Fengjiu took out medicine and cloth from the space. As he helped him apply the medicine to stop the bleeding, he said reproachfully, "You're too much. Don't you know that you'll hurt your hand? You hurt yourself and I'm still worried." "I'm sorry," Xianyuan Mo said apologetically. He had already calmed down. He watched as Fengjiu bandaged his hand. After Leng Shuang cleaned up the things on the table, he looked at the monk. "If what you said is true, is there a way to solve it?" "There's always a way to solve every tribulation." "There's definitely a way." The monk looked at him and was silent for a while. In the end, he shook his head. "I'm powerless. I don't know how to solve this tribulation. After all, what I know is limited." Fengjiu put down Xianyuan Mo's hand. After looking at him, she looked at the monk and said, "Even if what you said is true, you should know that I'm not a person of this world. Since I can come here and become the ruler of this world, what else can we not do?" Her gaze shifted to the side and landed on the two children. Since they're already born, they're already living in this world. Even if they have to go through 81 tribulations, I believe that they'll be like us one day. They'll grow from the tribulation and become strong. Hearing her words, Xianyuan Mo's heart gradually calmed down. Yes, hadn't he and she also walked step by step like this? Although they had the fate of the Emperor and the Star of the Phoenix, the hardships they had experienced over the years were unimaginable to others. They had also broken through the tribulation time and time again. They grew from the tribulation and became strong today. Their children had inherited their powerful bloodline. It was only right for them to do so. After the monk put away the things, he bade farewell to the two of them. "Goodbye, both of you." Fengjiu stood up and said, "I'll see you off, master." "Please," she said and gestured for him to leave. The monk turned around and walked out with Fengjiu. When they reached the entrance, the monk stopped in his tracks and said, "Patron, let's stop here." "Be careful, master," Fengjiu said. "Ba." The monk put his palms together and fixed his gaze on Fengjiu. He said, "Benefactor, you are a blessed person. In your life, you are often helped by benefactors. Benefactors' two children are the same. When they were born, they received blessings from various powerhouses. As long as they can meet their benefactor, they will surely turn misfortune into blessing." "Thank you for your kind words, master," Fengjiu said. The monk nodded slightly before turning around and leaving. Seeing the monk's figure disappear from his sight, Fengjiu retracted his gaze and murmured, "Destined benefactor. Who could it be?" She sighed in her heart and turned to walk inside. When she arrived at the main courtyard, she saw Xianyuan Mo holding his daughter in his arms as he coaxed his son in his small bed with a flute drum. She walked up to him and said, "Don't worry too much. Sometimes, man proposes but God disposes. There are many things that haven't happened yet, and no one knows what will happen." She picked up her son from the small bed and said, "Our children are so smart and cute. Even if they are in trouble, they will surely turn misfortune into blessing." Chapter 40-50. On the other side, in the guest room, Yi Feifei was sitting on the bed with her chin in her hand. Since Ling Shuang told her about Fingzhou yesterday, she had been thinking about whether she could borrow his power to help her deal with those matters. If it was up to her, it would be impossible. However, if Fingzhou and the others helped, it would be a piece of cake for them. Of course, the premise was that Fingzhou was as powerful as Ling Shuang said. However, if she told them about her family matters, would Fingzhou and the others believe her? Would they help her? Just as she was struggling, Du Fan walked into the main courtyard. When he saw the two people sitting in the courtyard, he was surprised to see that Xianyuan Mo's hand was bandaged. A trace of surprise flashed through his eyes, but he calmly looked away and fixed his gaze on Fingzhou. "Master." He bowed and called out. "What is it?" Fingzhou asked and looked at him. "I've investigated Yi Feifei's situation," he said. Because this person was close to his master and had saved his master, he was still living here. Naturally, he had to investigate this person's background and details. However, he didn't expect that this investigation would lead him to discover something fishy. Hearing this, Fingzhou raised his eyebrows. "Oh. Is there a problem with her background?" "To be exact, there's a problem with her family," Du Fan said. At her signal, he continued, "I was worried, so I secretly investigated her and her family. Yi Feifei's mother disappeared 3 years ago and her whereabouts are still unknown. She also started to disguise herself 3 years ago. However, the birthmark on her face has been there since she was young. Her family seems to be attached to a powerful force, but we couldn't find out. Her father's behavior also started to change 3 years ago, but we couldn't find out the reason in such a short time. However, we know that the internal affairs of the Yi family are very complicated." He paused for a moment before continuing, "Ever since Yi Feifei left home, the Yi clan has been secretly searching for him. Furthermore, this is not the first time Yi Feifei has left home. Usually, he would be found and brought back not long after he left. This time, the Yi clan is also searching for him." Hearing this, Fingzhou said, "No matter how complicated Yi Feifei's family background is, she won't have a problem. Moreover, I promised her one thing. If she really wants my help, she will come to me after she thinks it through." Saying this, she pursed her lips and smiled. "During this time, you should take care of her in the residence. After all, she is my savior." "Yes," Du Fan replied. He bowed and left. For him, after finding out the details of the other party, eliminating the danger, and knowing that she didn't approach their master with ulterior motives, he could rest assured that she would stay here. After leaving the courtyard, he saw Ling Hua waiting outside. Du Fan walked over and asked in a low voice, "Why is Yama Lord's hand injured? What happened?" Ling Hua glanced inside and said in a low voice, "The master left and said something about the 2 young masters." When Yama Lord heard this, he crushed the teacup and cut his hand. Master bandaged it. Hearing this, Du Fan nodded. He looked back thoughtfully and said, "About the 2 young masters? What could make Yama Lord like this?" Chapter 40-51. Hearing this, Du Fan's face couldn't help but turn serious. "Why would you say such a thing? Do the masters believe it?" Ling Hua thought about the monk's words and the expressions of his master and the Yama Lord. His heart was heavy as well. He said in a low voice, "From the looks of it, my master and the Yama Lord believe it. However, they don't believe in fate." He repeated what he had said in the courtyard to him and said, "But according to Lord Yan's arrangements, the matters here are more or less settled. We only need to wait for Master to place his spiritual energy in this world before we can return. So, we also need to make arrangements for our return journey. Let's settle the matters here and wait for Qi Kang and the others to return." Du Fan nodded, "I understand. Take care of the courtyard. I still have some matters to attend to." He left as he spoke. Du Fan arrived at the courtyard where Yi Feifei was staying. As soon as he entered the courtyard, he saw her sitting on the stairs in the middle of the courtyard, one hand supporting her chin as she frowned in thought. He coughed lightly and said, "Are you used to living here?" Yi Feifei looked at him and asked, "What are you doing here?" "I'm here to tell you that the Yi family is looking for you everywhere." As Du Fan spoke, he was about to open the fan in his hand when he remembered what Yi Feifei had said. He couldn't help but close the fan and place it behind his back. Hearing this, Yi Feifei's expression changed slightly, and Du Fan raised his eyebrows and looked at her, and "Those people are loitering outside our residence. They probably know you're here. I heard my master promise you one thing. Leng Hua should have told you about our abilities. If you need anything, you can ask. We can help you solve your problems." Hearing this, Yi Feifei bit her lip. "You make it sound so easy. You don't believe in our abilities. Or you don't believe in us?" Du Fan asked. Seeing that she didn't speak for a long time, Du Fan walked to the table in the courtyard and sat down. "I'll tell you the truth," he said. "I've already investigated your background and your family. I also know if you're in trouble. You investigated me." Yi Feifei jumped up like a kitten whose tail had been stepped on, glaring at Du Fan. Du Fan glanced at her and said with a faint smile, "What's wrong with investigating you? Could it be that you think that we don't need to investigate the people who are close to my master and are now living here? Who do you think my master is? Do you think anyone can get within 10 meters of her?" Yi Feifei's lips moved as if he wanted to say something, but in the end, he didn't say anything. He just continued to stare at him. "It's just that I didn't expect to find so many things after this investigation." As he spoke, he glanced at her and stared at her with an expression as if he was watching a good show. Hearing him say this, Yi Feifei couldn't help but ask nervously, "What did you find?" As she spoke, she seemed to think of something and said, "Even if you really found something, in such a short time, you only know some things that everyone knows." Saying this, she seemed to calm down and sat back down on the stone steps. Chapter 40-52. "I don't believe you," Yi Feifei said. Du Fan looked at her, the fan in his hand opened out of habit, and he gently fanned himself in front of his chest. With a smile on his face, he said, "Your mother went missing 3 years ago, and her whereabouts are still unknown. It was also 3 years ago that you began to make yourself detestable. The birthmark on your face was not a natural one, but a disguise made by your mother ever since you were born. As for the reason that," he paused, and his lips curled into a smile, "you have a secret, or rather, your mother has a secret. And your mother's disappearance is related to this secret. The power behind your family is also trying to uncover your secret. So, in these 3 years, you have tried countless times to escape, but you were caught again and again. And in your family, your father, who should have protected you, did not protect you as a father should. So, there is a problem with your father." As he spoke, he observed the expression on her face. Seeing her initial calmness, and the trace of panic that flashed across her eyes after he finished speaking, he was almost certain that his guess was not wrong. From what he found out, and thinking back to that day when they met at the city gates, the middle-aged man who claimed to be her father did not look at her with love or indulgence. Even if she, as a daughter, had gone overboard and acted recklessly, and had a bad reputation, he should not have looked at her with the eyes of an indifferent bystander. It was just that he did not know what the problem was, and only wanted to trick her. Although what he had said above was said in such a way, it was as good as not saying anything at all. However, the things that she was hiding in her heart were clearly revealed by him. "So, I even know that my father is a fake," she muttered to herself, and her eyes were filled with shock. After all, she was only a 16 or 17-year-old girl, and did not have much experience in the world. After being tricked by Du Fan, she was the first to say it. Du Fan was like a fox. When he heard this, he was slightly surprised, but did not show it on his face. He only nodded and replied, "That's right, I know all about it." Yi Feifei was silent. She closed her eyes and pondered, and her face was slightly pale. Her hands occasionally tugged at the corner of her clothes, and she did not realize that her clothes were wrinkled. "Actually, you don't have to worry about anything else. My master is the master of heaven and earth, what has she not seen? She can solve any problem. Since you saved her, she wants to repay your kindness. Why don't you take this opportunity to think about what you need us to do for you? You should know that we will not stay in this world for long. When our companions return, we will prepare to leave. If you miss this opportunity, I think you will regret it. Why are you telling me all this? Even if you can't repay the favor, you won't lose anything." Yi Feifei said, looking up at him. Chapter 40-53. Hearing his words, Yi Feifei was silent. That was right. For cultivators, karma was the most troublesome thing, especially for powerful cultivators like Feng Nine. If they owed someone a favor, it would be more and more difficult for them to advance in cultivation and experience the heavenly thunder. She hugged her knees and sat in silence for a long time. Du Fan did not say anything either. He just sat there quietly and watched until she stood up. "Where's your master? I want to see him," Yi Feifei said. Hearing this, Du Fan smiled and stood up. "I'll take you there." With that, he gestured for her to follow him. Yi Feifei glanced at him and walked out with him. In the main courtyard, Feng Jiu and Xianyuan Mose were talking and discussing their next plan. At this moment, they heard Du Fan's voice from outside. "Master, Miss Yi is here. She says she has something to say to you." Feng Jiu glanced at Xianyuan Mose. Xianyuan Mose stood up and said, "You two talk. I'm going back to my room to calm down." It had to be said that the monk's words had affected him. After all, it was related to the fate of his two children. It was impossible for him to not worry about it. The two children were playing in their small bed, making squeaking sounds from time to time. Feng Jiu glanced at the two children. When he saw Xianyuan Mose return to his room, he paused for a moment and said, "Come in. Miss Yi, please." Du Fan turned to the side and invited her in. After she entered, he followed behind her. The moment Yi Feifei entered the courtyard, she saw the two adorable children on the small bed. Seeing the two children's delicate and adorable appearance, she could not help but glance at Feng Jiu. "These are your children." Feng Jiu smiled and gestured for her to sit down. "That's right. They're twins. This is the older brother and this is the younger sister. She's so cute." Yi Feifei smiled and sat down at the table. She seemed a little nervous and perturbed. She put her hands on her legs and slightly clutched her dress. Then she said, "Well, I have something to tell you." Feng Jiu took a sip of tea and said softly, "Go ahead." Yi Feifei glanced at the people in the courtyard and hesitated for a moment. "They are all my trusted subordinates. If you have something to say, just say it. They're here, so they can give us some advice." "There's no need to avoid them," Feng Jiu said with a smile. He didn't ask Leng Shuang, Du Fan, and Leng Hua to leave. Even so, Du Fan and the others were tactful. They looked at each other and walked to the side at the same time. They didn't get too close to them, but they didn't leave the courtyard either. "I'm sure you already know about my situation. Since that's the case, I'll get straight to the point." Yi Feifei took a deep breath and looked at Feng Jiu. "Didn't you say that I saved your life and you would do something for me? Then I want you to help me uncover the power behind the Yi family and eliminate the power that controls the Yi family." She paused and looked at Feng Jiu with some apprehension. "This is what I want you to help me with." Chapter 40-54. Yi Feifei was silent for a moment. She took a deep breath and began, 3 years ago, my father, who had always been in love with my mother, seemed to have changed into a different person. He changed me and my mother greatly. Before I could figure out why, my mother disappeared and her whereabouts are still unknown. On the third day after my mother disappeared, I unexpectedly found out that the father I have now was not my father. When the three people in the corner heard this, they could not help but look at each other. A trace of surprise flashed across Du Fan's eyes. He had tricked her by saying that there was something wrong with her father, but he did not know that there was such a problem. Fake. As far as he knew, her father was now the head of the Yi family. How could a fake be the head of the family? Could it be that no one in her family had found out? Or did everyone in her family know that this fake head of the Yi family was a member of the power behind the Yi family? For a moment, countless guesses flashed across his mind. When Yi Feifei said this, her hands were tightly clenched into fists. Her face turned cold, but her voice was still calm, as if she was talking about someone else's affairs. He tried to get a secret from me. However, I suspected that he had killed my father and mother, so I pretended to be crazy and did ridiculous things to make them lower their guard against me. At the same time, I secretly investigated what had happened. As Fingzhou listened, he gently played with the teacup in his hand. Hearing her words, he thought of the scene when her identity was stolen. He could not help but feel amused. A smile appeared on his lips as he looked at her and asked, "How did you know that he was a fake?" Yi Feifei reached out and touched her face. She looked at Fingzhou and said, "The red birthmark on my face was made by a special drug. Only my mother and father knew about this. That person did not know." Hearing this, Fingzhou was slightly surprised. He looked at her and asked, "I heard from Du Fan that you had the red birthmark on your face when you were young. Why did your parents make such an eyesore red birthmark on your face at such a young age?" "My mother told me that when I was born, I was very cute and looked like my mother. My father said that if his daughter looked good, she would definitely be able to find a man who truly loved me. My mother laughed and said that men were greedy for beauty. A beautiful woman would have fewer chances to meet true love because most of the time, men would only be interested in her appearance." Speaking of this, Yi Feifei laughed. She seemed to recall the expression on her mother's face when she said this to her. "So the two of them made you a birthmark? In the hope that you would meet a man who did not care about your appearance?" Fengzhou added. As soon as his voice fell, he looked at her exquisite and outstanding appearance and nodded. He smiled and said, "That was very thoughtful of you." Yi Feifei smiled and said, "My mother was very beautiful. My father loved her not because of her appearance. My mother hoped that I could meet a man like my father. However, she did not expect that something like that would happen 3 years ago." The smile on her face disappeared, and her expression became a little gloomy. Chapter 40-55. Yi Feifei looked at her and said, "I can't say." Hearing this, Fengzhou nodded and said, "That's fine. I'll let Du Fan handle this for you. Do you want to stay here, or do you want to go to the Yi family with him?" "I'll stay here first." Yi Feifei said, "If this matter gets out of hand and things get out of hand, they'll definitely take me away. I think it's safer for you here than for me to stay in the Yi family." Fengzhou smiled and said, "That's true. Most people don't dare to come to my place." She paused and said with a smile, "Since you've said so, then stay here." She looked at Du Fan and said, "You can handle this matter. If there's a problem that you can't solve, let me know." Du Fan stepped forward and replied, "Yes." Then, he looked at Yi Feifei and said, "Miss Yi, there's something I'd like to ask. Why don't we go to the front?" Seeing this, Yi Feifei glanced at Fengzhou and stood up, saying, "Then I'll take my leave." Then, he walked out. Du Fan saw this and bowed to Fengzhou before leaving as well. After they left, Fengzhou played with her children and said to Leng Shuang and Leng Hua, "Take care of her here. See if there's anything she needs and send it to her." "Yes, the two of them replied. On the other side, after Chi Kong and the others finished dealing with the matters of the hidden sect, they cupped their hands and thanked the cultivators who helped them. Everyone, will part ways here. Thank you for this matter. Young Master Chi is too courteous. Everyone quickly cupped their hands and bowed. Although they had come on this trip under the name of the ghost Dr. Feng Zhou, they had not really helped much. After all, the sect master of the Hidden Worlds sect was not present, and the peak masters, elders, and other experts had been dealt with by Chi Kong and the others themselves. They had only helped to prevent the people of the Hidden Worlds sect from escaping and to kill those disciples. However, even so, they still received quite a bit of the treasures they obtained from the sect. Furthermore, each of them also received a medicinal pill refined by the ghost Dr. Feng Zhou. Even though they were somewhat regretful that they could not see the ghost Dr. Feng Zhou in person, they were already very satisfied with this. Young Master Chi, if there's nothing else, we'll take our leave. Saying this, everyone cupped their hands and bowed again. Until next time. Chi Kong said as he cupped his hands and bowed. After watching them leave on their swords, he turned around and said to the people beside him, "Let's go back too." "Let's go," the few of them said as they flew back on their swords. In order to help Yi Feifei deal with the matters of the Yi family, Du Fan asked Bai Qingqing for help. She disguised herself as Yi Feifei and followed him back to the Yi family. Just as they arrived at the main door of the Yi family, before they could knock, the door opened from the inside. A group of guards quickly walked out, followed by Yi Feifei's so-called father. "You still know to come back," Patriarch Yi said in a low voice. He stared gloomily at Bai Qingqing, who had disguised herself as Yi Feifei. Bai Qingqing glanced at him and said, "This is my home, of course I have to come back." Saying this, she shouted angrily at the guards who were about to grab her, "Back down." Chapter 40-56. Bai Qingqing glanced at him and walked inside. When the guards were about to step forward, Du Fan gently fanned them with the fan in his hand. They walked inside but did not go to the front yard. Instead, they went to the place where the ancestors of the Yi family were enshrined. As for why they were so familiar with the way inside, it was naturally because Yi Feifei had told them in advance. Seeing the two of them rushing inside, Master Ye's face was as black as the bottom of a pot. He shouted angrily, "Are you trying to rebel? Men! Take them down!" Just as he finished speaking, the guards in the residence rushed out and rushed towards the two of them. The other members of the Yi family heard the commotion and could not help but come out to see. When they saw that Yi Feifei had returned with a man, they could not help but curl their lips. "Look, we haven't seen her for so many days. I don't know where she went. She even came back with a gigolo. If she was my daughter, I would drown her in the water." "Stop talking." A middle-aged man next to her frowned and shouted in a low voice, "Go back to the courtyard. Don't cause trouble here." The woman wanted to say something, but when she saw the man staring at her with a dark face, she turned around and left reluctantly. The middle-aged man saw that the collateral family members around him were discussing and immediately shouted, "Are you all so free? Go back to your own courtyards." However, not long after he finished speaking, those people had not yet left when they heard a loud bang. When they heard the sound, they were all stunned. Hiss! That woman Yi Feifei is too willful. She actually went to ring that ancient bell. That's the ancient bell that the Yi family would only ring if they invited the ancestor. What is she trying to do? She actually alarmed the ancestor? Does she not want to live anymore? Hearing the gasps of discussion in his ears, the middle-aged man recovered from his shock and quickly walked forward. When he arrived at the courtyard where the ancestral tablets were enshrined, he saw that there were guards both inside and outside the courtyard. His elder brother was currently looking at Yi Feifei with an ashen face. The gloomy aura around him made the middle-aged man feel terrified. Big brother, don't be angry. Fei Fei is just a child. He doesn't know any better. He hurriedly went forward and said, while angrily shouting at Yi Fei Fei, how can you be like this? Do you know that this will alarm the patriarch? Hurry up and apologize to your father. As he shouted, he signaled with his eyes for her to apologize. Looking at this person, Du Fan and Bai Qingqing exchanged glances. This middle-aged man should be the second uncle that Yi Fei Fei mentioned. It was said that her second uncle had always been protecting her in this family. Moreover, her second uncle's strength was considered to be at the top of the Yi family, and he had a lot of authority. The fact that those people didn't directly take her away and interrogate her was because of her second uncle. Second uncle, I have something to say, so I have to ring this ancient bell and ask the patriarch to come out. Bai Qingqing said. Not only did she look exactly like Yi Fei Fei, even her voice and mannerisms were exactly the same. Coupled with her master's disguise technique, no one in the Yi family would be able to tell that she was not Yi Fei Fei. Didn't you hear what I said? Arrest her and that gigolo. Patriarch Yi shouted in a low voice. His gloomy gaze fell upon the two of them. Chapter 40-57. Du Fan. When the Yi family's second master heard this name, for some reason, his heart trembled. He carefully looked at the man in front of him. He saw that he was wearing a white robe embroidered with dark patterns. He held a fan in his hand. His appearance was outstanding and his temperament was outstanding. Inexplicably, his eyes could not help but widen. You're Du Fan. Ghost Dr. Fengzhou's subordinate, Du Fan. The Yi family's second master's voice suddenly rose, showing his shock and astonishment. That's me. Du Fan gently fanned himself with the fan in his hand. He looked at the Yi family's head and said, I'm not a pretty boy who popped out of nowhere. The Yi family's head's face was still gloomy. His hands under his sleeves were already tightly clenched into fists, intruding into my Yi family and spouting nonsense here. Do you think my Yi family is so easy to fool? The Yi family's head shouted in a gloomy voice. His eyes were still fixed on them as he shouted, arrest them. Yi family. Are you? Du Fan asked unhurriedly. His voice was not loud, but it clearly reached everyone's ears. To everyone's ears, it was like a sudden clap of thunder, causing everyone to be bewildered. After hearing Du Fan's words, the Yi family's second master's eyes flashed slightly. What's going on? At this moment, an old but powerful voice suddenly sounded. That voice echoed in the Yi family's head and reached everyone's ears. It's the great ancestor. The Yi family's second master cried out in surprise and looked back. The great ancestor has come out of seclusion. The great ancestor has actually come out of seclusion. While everyone in the Yi family was whispering and exclaiming, the old voice sounded again. Everyone, come to the front yard's hall. Du Fan smiled and said to Bai Qingqing beside him, let's go. As he spoke, he walked out with her. Lord Yi wanted to make a move, but in the end, he restrained himself. He waved his hand to signal the people around him to disperse. After watching them walk forward, he also followed them to the front yard. When the group of people arrived at the front yard, the guards inside and outside were guarding vigilantly. The hall in the front yard was already filled with the Yi family's patriarch, elders, and various people in charge. In the middle of the main seat, there was an old man dressed in gray sitting. He was the Yi family's patriarch. Everyone looked at the few people who walked in from outside. After glancing at the few familiar faces, their gazes landed on Du Fan. How should I address you, young master? The Yi family's ancestor asked. Du Fan, he said, saluting with folded hands, fan in hand. To those who were in seclusion, the name Du Fan was unfamiliar and unheard of. Therefore, he looked towards the Yi clan leader at the bottom left. The Yi clan patriarch looked at Du Fan and said, Is young master Du Fan under Fengzhou? Yes. Du Fan answered and walked to the seat that was originally reserved for the Yi clan leader and sat down. He had a leisurely look on his face. His actions were casual and natural, as if he was in his own home. There was not the slightest bit of restraint. At this moment, someone came forward and whispered something in the great ancestor's ear, then quietly retreated. After hearing that, the great ancestor looked at Du Fan with surprise. He looked at him and asked, "May I know why young Master Du has come to our residence?" "I'm here to accompany her," Du Fan said, and looked at Bai Qingqing, who was standing in the middle of the hall, disguised as Yi Feifei. Chapter 40-58. "Yes," Bai Qingqing replied. She stepped forward and bowed respectfully. "Greetings, Patriarch." Patriarch Yi nodded and asked, "Were you the one who rang the ancient bell? What's the matter?" Bai Qingqing was about to speak when she was interrupted by a voice from behind. "Patriarch." Patriarch Yi stepped forward and bowed. "I've spoiled this girl too much, causing her to run amok. Some time ago, she avoided the guards and left home. I don't know what she did outside. Now that she's back, she's alerted you. She's really disgraceful." As soon as he finished speaking, he glanced at the person beside him. His eyes were cold as he shouted, "Wicked girl! Kneel down now." Bai Qingqing glanced at him and looked away. She turned to look at Patriarch Yi and said, "Patriarch, this person isn't my father. He's not a member of the Yi clan." As soon as she said that, the entire hall was in an uproar. It was a mess. Some people were surprised and shocked. Some people's hearts sank. They had a bad feeling. Some people were silent and just watched coldly. Some people were gloating as if they were watching a show. Patriarch Yi's face was gloomy. As soon as she finished speaking, he raised his hand and slapped Bai Qingqing, "Wicked girl." However, the one standing here was Bai Qingqing and not the real Yi Feifei. Therefore, when he slapped her, she took a step back and increased the distance between them. She only felt a gust of wind sweep past her, but it did not touch her at all. Du Fan watched calmly and thought to himself, "This Yi family's affairs are really messy. It's no wonder that Yi Feifei didn't want to come back and wanted to stay with the master, saying that it was the safest place. Also, if the one standing here today was Yi Feifei, this slap would probably make her face swollen. Perhaps he didn't expect this slap to hit nothing." Patriarch Yi's face became gloomier. He wanted to step forward, but at this moment, the second master of the Yi clan stepped forward and stood between them. "Brother, let's talk nicely. Don't hit the child," the second master of the Yi clan said, obviously protecting Bai Qingqing behind him. Patriarch Yi took a deep breath and clenched his fists tightly. At this moment, he heard someone in front of him speak. "Feifei, you are too outrageous. How can you say such disgraceful words just because your father wants to scold you?" a middle-aged man said as he shook his head, looking very disappointed in her. "That's right. We all know how your father treats you. You're just a girl, yet you chase after every man you see outside. You've made your reputation so bad. If it were any other family, you would have already been locked up or sent to the countryside. Why would they let you stay in the family? You said that your father isn't your father just to vent your anger. That's too much. There's such a big living person here. If he's fake, how could we not know?" Another person also spoke up, looking at her with a displeased gaze. The old man at the main seat frowned when he heard that. He looked at Bai Qingqing and asked, "What's going on? Did you really say that just to vent your anger?" Chapter 40-59. Hearing this, the clan leader's eyes widened and he stood up abruptly. "Nonsense. Men! Take her down. Take her down." Looking at the furious clan leader, the others all had different thoughts and were deep in thought. When the guards outside heard the shouts from inside, they immediately rushed in and surrounded Bai Qingqing. When the Yi family's patriarch saw this, his face darkened and he slammed his hand on the table. "Leave!" Hearing his shout, the guards couldn't help but look at each other before retreating. "Continue," the Yi family's patriarch said in a low voice, and his gaze fell upon Bai Qingqing. Bai Qingqing glanced at the clan leader and continued, "Now, more than half of the Yi family is part of that power. There are not many who have the right to speak. If the patriarch goes into seclusion for a few more years, I'm afraid the Yi family will no longer be the Yi family." Hearing this, the Yi family's patriarch's aura became gloomy and terrifying. He pursed his lips and his sharp gaze swept across the others in the hall. Finally, his gaze fell upon the Yi family's patriarch and he said, "Tell me, is what she said true?" "Patriarch, she's talking nonsense," the Yi family's patriarch said and stepped forward. "Although the Yi family is a century-old family, we can't be compared to the real big families in other places. Moreover, the Yi family has never been in the limelight. What do we have that others can spy on us? Moreover, what she said is ridiculous. What mysterious power is controlling the Yi family? What do you mean by I'm fake? This is ridiculous." As he spoke, he looked at the others in the hall. "Do you believe what she said? Do you? Can you believe such ridiculous words?" Everyone in the hall was silent. Their brows were slightly furrowed and they were deep in thought. At this moment, Du Fan smiled and gently fanned his chest with the fan in his hand. He looked at the Yi family's patriarch and said, "I have a bottle of potion here. As long as you put a drop on your face, no matter what kind of disguise you use, your original appearance will be revealed." He paused and with a turn of his hand, a bottle of potion appeared in his hand and he placed it on the table. "Patriarchy, do you dare to try?" Patriarch Ye's face darkened. Before he could say anything, a middle-aged man stood up and shouted angrily, "Ridiculous! I am the patriarch of the Yi family. How can I let you casually use medicine like this? This is our Yi family's business. Please leave immediately." "Yes. Leave." Looking at the few people who spoke, the Yi clan's ancestor's expression changed unpredictably. He pursed his lips and did not speak. After a long while, he raised his hand to signal everyone to be silent. Then, he opened his mouth and said, "If that's the case, then give it a try. That way, we can shut the mouths of the masses." Hearing this, the eyes of the Yi clan's patriarch flashed. He glanced at the Yi clan's patriarch and remained silent, as if he was thinking about something. "What? Master Yi doesn't dare?" Du Fan raised his eyebrows and looked at him. The Yi clan's clan leader glanced at the crowd. Some of them were deep in thought, some were evading the gazes of others, and some were staring at him. His heart trembled. He glanced at the ancestor of the Yi clan and said, "Since the ancestor has spoken, I have no reason to decline." Chapter 4060. Hiss. Fei Fei. Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air due to their shock. The second master of the Yi family, who was the closest, instinctively let out a low cry. He reached out his hand, wanting to pull Yi Fei Fei back, but he was sent flying by a palm wind. His entire body fiercely fell backwards and fell to the ground. The Yi family patriarch's face was as white as a sheet. His hands trembled slightly. He seemed to have forgotten to react and just stared blankly. When the Yi clan ancestor saw this scene, his expression changed greatly. When he saw that Yi Zichen had captured the person, he immediately gathered his qi and rushed out. His old and deep voice carried a powerful pressure. "Where do you think you're going?" In an instant, the hall was in a mess. Everyone quickly got up and chased after him. Therefore, no one noticed that Du Fan was still sitting there without moving. Instead, he was leisurely fanning himself with one hand as he watched the scene unfold. Ever since Yi Fei Fei said that she was in danger and was unwilling to return, he had already made arrangements for Bai Qingqing to disguise herself as her and appear in the Yi residence on her behalf. Even if there was really danger, with Bai Qingqing's strength, she would have the chance to protect herself and escape at any time. Others did not notice, but he did. When that person grabbed Bai Qingqing's throat and took her away, she was restraining her instincts to fight back and let him take her away. He stood up and looked at the second master of the Yi family who was being helped to his feet. Seeing that he was in a hurry to chase after the person, he immediately called out to him, "Second Master Yi." When the second master of the Yi family heard Du Fan's voice, he instinctively stopped and turned around to look at him. "Second Master Yi, rather than chasing after that person, I think it's better for you to deal with the matters in the Yi family first." Du Fan said with a smile, and his gaze fell on the second master of the Yi family. Hearing this, the second master of the Yi family was slightly moved. He asked, "Master Du, you brought Fei Fei back. Now that she's been taken away, why aren't you worried? Aren't you worried that she'll be killed by that person?" "Don't worry, Second Master Yi. She'll be fine." Du Fan said, "Your mansion is in a mess. Your ancestor won't be able to catch up with that person. Since that's the case, you'd better get rid of those spies in your mansion first." Hearing this, Yi Clan's second master paused for a moment, then said, "I understand." He cupped his fists towards Du Fan and bowed, "Thank you for the reminder." As he spoke, he quickly walked out. With a low shout, he had everyone in the residence gather. On the other side, Bai Qingqing raised her head slightly. She was being held captive and used a teleportation scroll to escape from the Yi clan. Hence, the moment she left the Yi clan's front yard, before the guards could surround her, she only saw a flash of light before her eyes. In the next moment, she had already appeared in a small forest. Due to the various training she had gone through, as well as her ability to adapt to sudden situations, the moment she was grabbed, her body's instinctive reaction was to fight back, but she forcefully restrained it. She really wanted to know where this person would take her. However, what she did not expect was that he seemed to be unable to control himself. After confirming that there were no pursuers behind them, he stopped in his tracks and grabbed her throat tightly with one hand. He said in a sinister voice, "Yi Fei Fei. You've grown quite capable. I really didn't think that you'd been pretending for the past 3 years." Bai Qingqing did not speak. She only looked at him. "Speak. Where the hell is it?" He tightened his grip and shouted. Chapter 4061. You're still pretending with me. It's no use. I know that thing is with you. If you don't want to suffer, you'd better hand it over. Otherwise, you'll suffer. He growled darkly. Bai Qingqing looked at him and said, "What's the point of wearing this face all the time? You still don't dare to show your true face." Ha! He laughed sinisterly and said, "You don't know, do you? This face was peeled off from your father's face. Otherwise, why do you think no one could tell that this face is fake?" Bai Qingqing's heart trembled when she heard this. She clenched her fists tightly. This face was peeled off from Yi Feifei's father's face. Even she felt terrible when she heard such a cruel thing. If Yi Feifei heard it with his own ears, how much of a blow would he be? What? You don't believe it? He sneered and said, "That's true. An ignorant person like you naturally wouldn't know that the best way to make a human skin mask is to peel it off from a person's face. However, I still have to tell you a piece of good news. Your father is still alive because we peeled his face off, but he's still alive. Tell me, isn't our technique amazing? Perverts." Bai Qingqing cursed angrily. She was someone who had experienced great changes in her family. Now that she heard such news and how Yi Feifei's father was treated in such a way, her heart was filled with anger and murderous intent. That was torture, tormenting people alive. She couldn't imagine the pain of having one's face peeled off. She couldn't believe that someone could survive such pain. She thought of Yi Feifei's missing mother and asked, "Is my mother in your hands too?" "Haha, that's right. Your mother is in our hands too. Don't worry, her face is still fine. We didn't peel off her face. This is all thanks to her beauty. Our protector took a liking to her and made her into our protector's human cauldron. Bai Qingqing trembled when she heard this. Human cauldron. Damn it. These people actually, the aura in her body churned as she burned with anger. Her killing intent soared to the sky, but she forcefully suppressed it. She took a deep breath and looked at him. Don't you want to know where that thing is? Take me to them. Hearing this, the man's eyes flashed with joy. Don't worry, even if you don't say it, I will take you back. After all, there is no place safer than our place. As he spoke, he took out a bundle of rope and tied her up before taking her away. When the Yi clan's ancestor couldn't catch up to them, he returned with a gloomy face. He immediately deposed the clan leader and ordered the Yi clan's second master to reorganize the entire Yi clan. Seeing this, Du Fan quietly left and headed outside. There was a strand of his divine sense on Bai Qingqing's body. This was specially set up to make it easier to track her down. Even if they had already left, he could still follow this strand of divine sense to find her. As long as they weren't too far away from him, he would be able to find them. When Feng Zhou heard the news at the residence, he asked Ling Shuang to inform Yi Feifei. At the same time, he asked her not to return. It wouldn't be too late for her to return after everything was settled. Chapter 4062. However, were her parents still alive? The next day, in the evening, Du Fan chased after Bai Qingqing. On a mountain road, he met Qi Kong and the others who were rushing back. Du Fan. Why are you here? Where are you going? Qi Kong asked. You're back. A smile appeared on Du Fan's face when he saw them. He patted their shoulders and said, the situation is like this. He gave a simple explanation of the situation and finally added, so, I'm currently on my way to chase after the person who captured Qingqing. So that's how it is. Qi Kong nodded and said, then let's go and help. That's right. We can help along the way. Hui Lang grinned. Du Fan shook his head and said, the more people there are, the bigger the target. In addition, all of you have just returned and still have to report back to your master. If you want to go with me, then Qi Kong can go with me. You all can go back first. You can also tell your master what happened. Seeing this, they looked at each other and nodded, okay, let's do it. Be careful. Qi Kong, let's go. I don't want to be too far away. Du Fan said and continued to move forward. Qi Kong nodded at Hui Lang and the others, then followed Du Fan. After they left, Hui Lang and the others followed them. At noon the next day, the person brought Bai Qingqing to a valley. After entering the valley, Bai Qingqing looked around and saw that there were many cultivators with above-average cultivation levels guarding the place. Moreover, this place was hidden. If she hadn't been brought here, she probably wouldn't have found this place. After she was brought into the valley, she was locked in a dungeon. She sat against the corner of the wall. Her hand turned gently behind her back and untied the rope. However, it was still wrapped around her hand and she didn't throw it away. Her gaze swept across the surroundings and landed on the cell opposite her. She felt an extremely weak aura there, like the flame of an oil lamp that would be extinguished at any time in the wind. The air was filled with the stench of blood. She sat there without moving. She just watched, guessed, and waited. At the same time, in a meeting room in the valley, the person wearing Yi family head's face took off the human skin mask and revealed his original appearance. He was also a middle-aged man, but his face was gloomy and cold. After that brat ran out, she came back with a guy called Du Fan, who was under Feng Zhou's command. With him around, she became bold and actually alerted the Yi family's patriarch and exposed the matter. As he spoke, a cold and gloomy look flashed in his eyes. he said, I only then did I know that Brat knew I was an imposter. If I had known that she had seen through me, I would have captured her and interrogated her. On the main seat, a white-haired man with a youthful face sneered when he heard this. If interrogation worked, you wouldn't have had to sneak into the Yi family for 3 years. Master, that brat is now locked in the dungeon. Should we bring her out for interrogation? Hearing this, the white-haired man with a youthful face played with 2 egg-sized luminous pearls in his hand and said, these people from the Yi family are all stubborn. If they weren't restrained, those 2 wouldn't have survived until now. Chapter 4063. Hearing this, the man's heart skipped a beat. Use her parents to force her to speak. To prevent any unexpected events from happening, let's do it tonight. The man in the main seat looked at the luminous pearl in his hand. He paused and asked, on this trip, did you only see the ghost Dr. Fingzhou's subordinate? Or did you see the ghost Dr. Fingzhou? She didn't see him, but she did see the battle between the Azure Dragon Sovereign and the sect leader of a hidden sect. At the mention of this, his expression turned serious. That hidden sect has already been destroyed. Looks like we have to hurry up to avoid any more trouble. The white-haired man said thoughtfully. At the same time, Du Fan and Qi Kong had already quietly arrived at the entrance of the valley. Looking at the array set up here, Du Fan raised his eyebrows and smiled. Looking at the array set up here, it would be difficult for ordinary people to enter. Qi Kong glanced at it and said, you're familiar with the array. You break it. There's no need to break it. Just follow me. We'll go in quietly and find Qingqing first. As Du Fan spoke, he walked in front and let Qi Kong follow closely behind him. The 2 of them quietly entered the array formation and headed inside. They didn't know if it was because the people in the valley were too confident, but because of the array, there wasn't anyone guarding the array. After they entered, they hid in the shadows and observed their surroundings. Du Fan then pointed to a small path and said, let's go through here. Qingqing should be over there. At this time, the sky was gradually darkening. In addition, the 2 of them were concealing their auras as they walked, so no one discovered them. However, when they passed by the small path, they unexpectedly saw a stream of water. Du Fan's heart skipped a beat. He lowered his voice and said, this might be the source of their drinking water. I'll add some ingredients to it. As he said this, he took out a medicine bottle from his space and sprinkled some medicinal powder into the water. Seeing this, Qi Kong asked, will this medicine work? Will it be discovered? No, this is the medicine that Master refined. I only have 1 or 2 bottles on me. Even those who are proficient in this field won't be able to detect anything. Don't worry. He said with a smile and put away the bottle, indicating for him to continue walking. At this moment, Bai Qingqing was in the dungeon. She looked at the dying man in the opposite cell and called out, who are you? It was pitch black in the dungeon. Only a faint ray of light shone through the small window. It was not enough to illuminate the interior of the dungeon. Furthermore, the person was hiding in the corner. No matter how good Bai Qingqing's vision was, she could not tell who the person was. Bai Qingqing paused for a moment before asking, how long has it been since you were captured? The other party still did not speak. The air was quiet, and only her voice echoed. At this moment, the iron door outside opened and 2 cultivators came in to check. They shouted at Bai Qingqing, stay here. Don't even think about running away. No one who enters this place can escape. Bai Qingqing glanced at the 2 cultivators and sat against the wall. Her hands were behind her back as if they were tied up. After the 2 cultivators left, she stood up and took out an inconspicuous hairpin from her hair and unlocked the cell. She gently opened the cell door. When she arrived at the iron cell, she paused for a moment. Then, she used the hairpin to open the cell door and walked in. Chapter 4064. She saw that the man's legs were chained up and his clothes were tattered. The wounds on his body had worsened and were filled with pus, emitting a foul stench. His hair was disheveled, but one could still see that half of his face was badly mutilated. Perhaps it was because she had heard that man say that he had peeled off Yi Feifei's father's face, but when she saw this man, the first thing that popped into Bai Qingqing's mind was Yi Feifei's father. Suppressing the shock and anger in her heart, she asked softly, "Are you Yi Feifei's father?" Perhaps it was because he had heard this name that the man who had remained silent all this while finally reacted. His hand moved slightly and he opened his eyes to look at Bai Qingqing. He took one look and spoke in a hoarse voice, "Don't waste your time. I don't know anything and I won't say anything." His breathing was very weak and so was his voice. However, he continued to speak, one word at a time. Other than the slight ripple in his eyes when he saw Bai Qingqing's face, nothing else could be seen from him. "I'm not one of them. My name is Bai Qingqing and my master is the ghost doctor, Fengjiu," Bai Qingqing said. When she saw that he did not respond, she stepped forward and pulled out a pill from her space. "I can see that your wounds are not light. Here's a pill, take it first. I'll bring you out of here later." As she spoke, she did not mind the rotting stench and the foul stench of blood on his body. Instead, she stuffed the pill into his mouth. When the pill entered his mouth, Father Yi, who had wanted to spit it out, felt a cooling sensation accompanied by a thick spiritual energy filling his mouth. He moved his hand and swallowed the pill. Once the pill had entered his mouth, a cooling sensation spread throughout his body. A warm current flowed from his dantian, warming up his weak body. It was as if his power was slowly gathering. She released the black iron chains that had shackled his legs. Just as she was about to help him up, she sensed an aura approaching from outside. She quickly put away the luminous pearl and returned to her cell to lean against the wall. "Qingqing." Du Fan's familiar voice rang out. Bai Qingqing, who had been leaning against the wall, immediately rose to her feet. "I'm here." Du Fan walked in. When he saw Bai Qingqing, he smiled and asked, "Are you all right?" "I'm fine," Bai Qingqing replied. She then said, "This should be Yi Feifei's father." She walked forward and opened the door of the cell. She took out a luminous pearl and illuminated the cell. Du Fan frowned and asked, "Are you sure?" "I think so," Bai Qingqing said. Hearing this, Du Fan said, "All right, take him out first." As he spoke, he took out a cloak from the space and wrapped it around his body to prevent it from touching his wound. Only then did he help him up. Father Yi was helped out of the dungeon. He looked at the two cultivators who had been killed and then looked at Qi Kong who was standing guard outside. He then looked at Bai Qingqing and asked, "Who are you people? Why did you save me?" "My master owes Yi Feifei a favor. That's why we're here," Du Fan said. Seeing that he could not walk with Father Yi, he carried him on his back. "Let's go over there. We've just scouted the area. We can hide there," Qi Kong said and gestured for them to go over there. Chapter 4065. Hearing this, the two were surprised. But then they said, "Then I'll go. You guys wait here," Du Fan said, intending to let Qi Kong stay behind to guard. "Wait a minute." Father Yi called out to Du Fan and asked, "How's Feifei? Is she all right?" "She's fine and safe. Don't worry," Du Fan said. Hearing this, he finally felt relieved. He looked at Du Fan and said, "It's been 3 years. We've lived a life worse than death for 3 years. We've been worried about her and that's why we've been living an ignoble existence. Now that I know she's fine, I'm relieved. We'll bring you guys out and let you guys reunite," Bai Qingqing said. Unexpectedly, as soon as she finished speaking, she saw him shake his head. "We've suffered 3 years of inhumane torture here. To us, death is already a kind of release. I only hope that before I die, I can see my wife again, Feifei's mother. Bai Qingqing pursed her lips slightly and transmitted her voice to Du Fan and Qi Kong. I heard from that person that Feifei's mother was chosen by a protector and he made her into a human furnace. Hearing this, the two men's faces turned ugly. A human furnace. To a woman, that was a life worse than death. You guys wait here. I'll go out and take a look. Du Fan said, then said to Bai Qingqing, help him treat his wounds. I'll set up a formation outside. As long as you guys don't leave the formation, ordinary people won't be able to sense that you're here. Okay. Bai Qingqing responded and helped Father Yi lie down. She untied his cloak and prepared to help him clean his wounds. Be careful, Qi Kong said. After sending him out and seeing that he left after setting up a formation outside, he walked back into the house. At this time, those people had not realized that the people in the dungeon had been rescued. They wanted to interrogate them after the sky darkened. They did not expect that the people had already been taken away. Du Fan went out. Because it was too troublesome to find the people in the entire valley, he could not search everywhere. So, he grabbed a cultivator and brought him to a dark place. Speak. Where is Yi Feifei's mother? The cultivator didn't expect someone to sneak into the valley. For a moment, his face revealed a shocked expression. He struggled for a while, but seeing that he couldn't escape, he said, I'll take you there. Let go of my throat first. When Du Fan saw this, he loosened his grip and the cultivator opened his throat to report. He tightened his grip and a cracking sound was heard. The cultivator's mouth was wide open and his words were all cut off in his throat by Du Fan. He couldn't make a single sound and his entire body stopped breathing because of his broken throat. Du Fan glanced at the dead body in his hand and frowned. He threw the body to a corner and poured a bottle of corpse-dissolving water to clean up the body. Only then did he continue to walk forward to find his next target. After the time it takes for an incense stick to burn, he arrived in front of a formation. The cultivator leading the way said with a trembling voice, It's here. This is where our left protector lives. That woman is inside there. When he heard this, Du Fan clenched his hand and killed the cultivator. After destroying the corpse, he stepped into the formation. The fog of this formation was poisonous. However, their master had once made them consume pills that would not contain any poisonous substances for 10 years. This little bit of poisonous gas naturally couldn't do anything to him. Chapter 4066. Restraining his aura, he walked in and caught a glimpse of a pool that was several meters long. Several naked women were playing in the water, and the person sitting in the middle of the pool was a man who looked to be in his 30s. The man had a gloomy aura, and his face was ruddy. His aura was extremely good, and he was drinking wine in the pool. When his sinister gaze swept past the naked bodies of the women, he let out a low chuckle. After draining the cup of wine in one gulp, he reached out and pulled one of the women into his embrace. He leaned over and kissed her, while one of his hands wandered around the woman's body without restraint. The other women saw this and leaned forward, each of them coquettishly moaning as they wrapped themselves around the man. Du Fan, who had a panoramic view of the scene in the pool, raised his eyebrows. The corner of his lips curled up, and his eyes turned cold. It seemed that this person was truly a lecherous monster. Aside from the few cultivators hidden in the shadows, this place was filled with women with extremely good figures. However, although these women looked to be in their 20s or 30s, their actual ages should only be in their 20s. It was likely that they had become old after being plucked by him. Taking advantage of the fact that he was leaning over one of the women, Du Fan rushed out from the shadows. The fan in his hand carried a sharp blade of qi that attacked the man's throat at a speed that was too fast for one to cover their ears. Facing the attack of killing intent, the man fiercely pushed a woman beside him away to block the attack. He quickly jumped out of the water, and the wind from his palms swept across the surface of the pool, causing a splash of water to turn into a sharp blade that attacked Du Fan. Shio shio shio. Du Fan turned the fan attack in his hand and struck the surface of the pool. As the water splashed, the fan in his hand also blocked the water blade. With a flash, his figure rushed out extremely quickly, and a stream of chi from the fan swept past the man's shoulder, leaving a deep wound on his shoulder. Hiss! He sucked in a breath of cold air. Blood seeped out from the wound and dripped into the pool. Without anything beside him, he jumped into the air naked and shouted, "Who are you?" "The person who will take your dog life," Du Fan said coldly as he released a powerful pressure. Under his pressure, the women who were screaming and trying to escape all hugged their heads and knelt down one by one, unable to move. When the man felt the powerful pressure, his expression changed greatly. He wanted to escape at the first moment, but who knew that a figure would flash in front of him, and a fan with a sharp blade would be pressed against his neck. The cold and bloodthirsty killing intent immediately made him not dare to move. "Your Honor, please spare my life." He stretched out his hands in a gesture of surrender, not daring to move, fearing that the fan in his opponent's hand would instantly take his life. Du Fan did not kill him immediately. Instead, he grabbed his throat with one hand and crushed his inner core with the other, crippling his cultivation. The man whose cultivation was crippled didn't even have the chance to scream. He just struggled with his mouth open until he was on the verge of death. He didn't even have the strength to struggle. Because his cultivation was crippled, his appearance also rapidly aged. In the end, he became a white-haired old man who was on the verge of death. After throwing the man to the side of the pool, Du Fan raised his hand and knocked the women unconscious. He then walked to the back, intending to find Yi Feifei's mother. When he came to a stone house in the back of the cave, he saw a woman who was completely naked. Only her loose black hair barely covered her body. Chapter 4067. He sighed softly. With a wave of his hand, the black cloak landed on her body. He said warmly, "Madam Yi, I'm here to take you away." The curled-up woman clutched the cloak tightly around her body. She slowly raised her head and looked at Du Fan in front of her. She didn't say anything and only shrank further into the corner. Seeing this, Du Fan said, "Madam Yi, perhaps you don't know this, but we've already exposed the fake master of the Yi family. I followed him here. I've already destroyed the protector's cultivation and he's lying outside on his last breath. We've already rescued the real master of the Yi family. Madam Yi, quickly chase after me and leave." He didn't kill the protector directly because he wanted to leave him for her to kill personally. Killing a cultivator who treated women as furnaces would be letting him off too easily. Madame Ye's body trembled when she heard this. She clutched the cloak tightly and looked at Du Fan. Her voice was hoarse as she asked, "Who are you? Why are you helping me? Why should I believe you? Madam Yi, perhaps you haven't heard of me. But since you asked, I'll tell you." As Du Fan spoke, he looked at the extremely guarded woman. He sighed softly in his heart and said warmly, "My master's name is Fingzhou. She's also known as the Ghost Doctor. Some people call her the Star of the Phoenix. She's the master of the heavens and earth, the leader of all the strong cultivators. Her reputation is illustrious. This time, I'm following my master's orders to help Yi Feifei. Because of this, I've interfered with the Yi family's matters. If Madame Yi doesn't believe me, you can follow me outside. You'll see for yourself." Hearing this, Madame Yi didn't say anything. She seemed to be thinking about something. After a while, she said, "Help me take that bunch of keys." She looked at the keys hanging on the wall as she spoke. Du Fan followed her gaze and walked forward to take the keys. The keys were placed there. They weren't near or far away. However, Madame Yi, whose feet were chained up, couldn't reach them. That protector did it on purpose. She saw that the key was here, but she couldn't get it. It was like seeing a way out, but she couldn't escape. She suffered day and night. He took out a set of clothes from his space and placed it in front of her along with the key. He said, "If Madame Yi doesn't mind, please change into these clothes for the time being." As he spoke, he turned around and walked out to wait outside. After a while, Madame Yi, who had put on simple clothes and a cloak, walked out. Du Fan, who was outside, glanced at her and gestured for her to follow. When she came to the front, she saw the unconscious person on the ground and the pool that was already dyed red with blood. Her gaze fell on the old man lying by the pool. Even though he was already so old, she still recognized him at a glance. He, ha 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 ha. She laughed softly, and in the end, she laughed loudly. As she laughed and laughed, tears flowed out. She walked forward, picked up the sword on the ground, and came in front of the man. She raised it high, and viciously stabbed it into his crotch. Ah! That a mournful scream came out of the old man's mouth. The indescribable pain caused his dying body to convulse in an instant. Blood flowed from his crotch. His eyes were wide open, and he glared fiercely at Madame Yi. He wanted to say something, but not a single word came out. Chapter 4068. Her robes were stained with blood because she had stabbed the man with her sword. She was in a daze as she stood there thinking about something. Tears kept flowing down her cheeks. Seeing this, Du Fan said, "Madame Yi, come with me." She regained her senses and took a moment to calm down before following Du Fan outside. When she saw him take her away from the sight of those people and pass through the array to arrive at a deserted house, she couldn't help but stop in her tracks. "He's inside?" Madame Yi asked. Her footsteps became heavy at this moment and she couldn't take another step forward. How could she face him now? She was already an unclean person. After being a furnace for 3 years, she no longer had the face to continue living in this world. Her vital energy and blood had long been depleted. If they hadn't restrained her and prevented her from dying, how could she have dragged out an ignoble existence until now? Du Fan paused for a moment, then said, "His body is severely injured and he's on the verge of death. You'd better go in quickly." As he spoke, Du Fan walked inside to take a look. Seeing that Bai Qingqing had already treated his wounds, he gestured for the two of them to come out and give the couple some space. The two of them walked out and stood guard outside with Du Fan. Du Fan saw that Madame Yi was still standing there and said, "Madame Yi, quickly go in. I'll have them take you away in a moment. We still have to clean up the people in this place." Hearing this, Madame Yi's eyes flashed. She glanced at Du Fan and the other two before walking inside. When she came inside and saw the person sitting against the wall, tears began to flow. Sure. Seeing her, Master Yi, who was sitting against the wall, called out her name in a trembling voice. He reached out to her, wanting to hold her hand. "Brother Gong." Madame Yi called out in a trembling voice. She stood there crying silently as she looked at the pitiful state her beloved was in. In the end, she couldn't help but rush forward and hug him tightly. Brother Gong, you've suffered." He held her hand. Even though his body was weak, he held it tightly, unwilling to let go. "I'm useless. I can't protect you. I'm useless. No, it's me. I implicated Brother Gong." She choked with sobs and held his face gently with one hand. "It's me. I'm the one who hurt you." Outside the house, the three of them stood by the formation and discussed. Bai Qingqing and Qi Kong looked at Du Fan and said, "Let's settle them down first and make sure they are safe before we deal with the people in the valley." Qi Kong pondered for a moment before saying, "I think this place is pretty good. It's relatively remote, and after setting up a concealment array here, as long as someone who isn't very strong passes by, they won't notice anything wrong with the array here." Hearing the two's words, Du Fan said, I added medicine to the water they drank. This can greatly reduce their combat effectiveness. However, we don't know the true strength of the person in charge here. We have to be careful. Bai Qingqing paused for a moment. Her heart was heavy. She asked slowly, can the two of them still survive like this? Chapter 4069. Du Fan and the others didn't know what the two were talking about. They were discussing outside and finally decided that rather than sending them away now, it would be better to wait for them to clear out the people in the valley before taking them away. That way, at least they wouldn't have to worry about the pursuers behind them. At the same time, the middle-aged man who was heading towards the dungeon led a few cultivators to the dungeon. When he saw the dead cultivator outside, his expression changed and he immediately shouted, "Quick! Go in and take a look." As soon as his voice fell, he quickly led his men inside. When he saw the empty dungeon, the middle-aged man couldn't help but heavily hit the black iron door and angrily cursed, "Damn it! How did she manage to escape? Search for her." He quickly led his men outside and ordered them to quickly search while he went forward to report to his master. What? She escaped. When the white-haired man heard the news, his expression changed. How did she escape? Wasn't it locked up? How could a woman like her escape from there? She even took Enchanting with her. This subordinate has already ordered people to search. They should still be in the valley. Don't worry, master, this subordinate will definitely bring them back. The middle-aged man repeatedly promised. Then what are you waiting for? Quickly go and find her. If you can't find her, don't come back. The man in the main seat shouted with a gloomy voice. With a wave of his sleeve, a force attacked and forced the man back a few steps. When the middle-aged man saw that he was angry, his forehead couldn't help but break out in cold sweat. He repeatedly responded and was about to turn around and leave when someone rushed in from outside in a panic. This is bad, master. What's with the flustered look? If there's something to say it properly. When the man at the head of the table saw that the cultivator who came to report had a panicked expression on his face, a vicious aura began to emanate from his body. Each and every one of them was outrageous. Even the people locked up in the dungeon couldn't see through it. Just a small matter and they were already in such a mess. They really couldn't take on such a big responsibility. Master, the left protector was killed. The woman who was locked up is also gone. The man said with a pale face. When he thought of the left protector's death, his body couldn't help but tremble. That state of death was truly too terrifying. What? Hearing this, the man in the main seat immediately stood up in shock. He looked at the cultivator in disbelief and shouted, "What did you say? Say it again." The left protector is dead. She died a horrible death. The cultivator said with a trembling voice, "The hidden guards there are all dead. They're all dead. Only a few women who were knocked unconscious are still alive." When the man in the main seat, his voice was cold as ice and as cold as an arrow. Chapter 4070. The white-haired man in the main seat said coldly, "If I'm not mistaken, someone must have followed you here and snuck into the valley. Investigate. Investigate immediately. Don't let a single one of them escape." He shouted in a low voice and walked out. Seeing this, the two of them quickly followed him out and mobilized the people in the valley to join the search. Once they made a big commotion, even Du Fan and the others who were in a remote area noticed them. The three of them looked at each other and said to Bai Qingqing, "You stay here and take care of them. The two of us will distract them and take care of those people while we're at it. Be careful." Bai Qingqing said and told them to be careful. They nodded and rushed in another direction. Not long after, the cries of the cultivators and the sounds of fighting could be heard from a place further away. The two people in the house seemed to have heard the commotion outside. They looked at each other. Mother Yi held Father Ye's hand and seemed to have made a decision. She tore off the inner part of her robe and bit her finger to write a letter in blood. Father Yi sat back and watched quietly. He watched as she put the letter away after writing it in blood. He walked outside and called, "Miss, please come in." Bai Qingqing was waiting outside. When she saw Mother Yi calling for her, she walked forward and asked, "Madam, is there something you need?" "Miss, I can't thank you enough. If it weren't for you, I'm afraid we wouldn't be able to see each other in this lifetime. The reason why we're still alive now is not only because we're being restrained, but also because we're guarding a secret. However, this secret didn't bring us any benefits. On the contrary, our families were destroyed because of it, and we suffered all kinds of torture and suffering." Mother Yi said with a soft and painful voice. She handed the letter in her hand forward and said, "This is the letter I wrote. I wrote it to my daughter, Fei Fei. Miss, I beg you, don't tell her about the torture we suffered here. We don't want her to know. We don't want her to know what kind of suffering her parents went through." Hearing this, Bai Qingqing glanced at the letter and her expression turned serious. She said, "You can see her. If there's anything you want to say, just say it to her face. There's no need for this letter. Furthermore, we won't mention a word about what happened here." Mother Yi shook her head and revealed a bitter smile of despair and pain. She said, "We can't live anymore. Even if you rescue us, we can't live anymore. We should have died 3 years ago. The only reason we've survived until now is because we're worried about Fei Fei." Bai Qingqing remained silent, not knowing how to persuade her. As a woman, she knew very well that after experiencing such a nightmare for 3 years, it was very difficult to forget. Not only her, but Father Ye's body as well. Even if he had taken that pill to heal his internal injuries, his body had been tormented again and again in the past 3 years. Even if her master had personally nursed him back to health, she was afraid that he would not have many years left to live. "Miss, you are all outstanding dragons and phoenixes. If possible, please take care of my daughter Fei Fei. She doesn't have her father and mother by her side to protect her, so no one can protect her." As Mother Yi spoke, tears fell down. She felt that she owed her daughter. However, she no longer had the face to see the world, to appear in front of her daughter again. Chapter 4071. Bai Qingqing felt very uncomfortable. She looked at her and said, "Since you know that if you die, no one will take care of her, how can you bear to leave her alone?" Looking at them, she could not help but think of herself. She was once the daughter of a noble family. However, in one night, her clan was annihilated and her parents died. She and her younger brother were the only ones left in the large family. If her master had not taken her in, how could she, who only had a pretty face, be bullied by others? Live a carefree life. Yimu shook her head, her eyes filled with desolation. "My husband won't live for long. I also don't want to live alone in this world. I want to accompany him, but those people, I also want to see them die in front of us." Her eyes were filled with hatred and determination. That protector was dead, but their master was still alive. That white-haired, child-faced, sinister man. If he had not wanted to steal the treasure, would he have let their family go through this ordeal? Their suffering was all because of him. Even if she had to die, she wanted to see him die before them. She turned to the bedside and helped Papa Yi off the bed. "Brother Gung, let me help you. Let's go." Bai Qingqing saw that she had made up her mind and could not help but help him up. She asked, "Everyone outside is looking for you. Once you leave this place, you'll be in danger. Where are you going? If we're going to die, we'll drag a few of them down with us." As Mother Yi spoke, she helped her husband out and said, "We don't want to stay here. We want to go out." But Bai Qingqing wanted to stop her, but she was interrupted. "Miss, I'm very grateful that you've saved us so that we can meet again. However, please don't stop us." Bai Qingqing had no choice but to ask, "Let me escort you out." If she did not protect them, they would probably be caught the moment they left this place. With Bai Qingqing's support, Mama Yi was able to help Papa Yi with ease. When the three of them left the house and were about to step into the array outside, Mama Yi paused and looked at Bai Qingqing. "That thing is an ancient red lotus." "What?" Bai Qingqing was taken aback. She could not help but look astonished. Mother Yi looked at the array and said, "That thing, the thing they want to take from me is the ancient red lotus. It's a sealed red lotus seed." Bai Qingqing felt her heart skip a beat. She found it hard to believe. Ancient red lotus. Was it really an ancient red lotus? She knew that her master had been looking for it all this time. Now, the black lotus of destruction was in the hands of the demon Venerable, the green lotus was with her master, and the golden lotus had also arrived on this trip. However, according to her master, it was in the possession of Nailan and Mo Qin. As for the red lotus, no matter how hard they tried, there was no news about it. It said that if you possess the ancient red lotus, as long as you obtain its approval, you can possess its powerful ancient powers and inherit its heavenly flames. Although I received it from my mother, no matter how I researched and tried to decipher it, I was unable to unlock its seal. I think I'm not the one who can possess it. Chapter 4072. Bai Qingqing thought to herself, "No wonder we didn't get any information about the ancient red lotus when we came here. It's not just us. Even the various forces here don't have any information about the ancient red lotus. I wonder where the people in the valley got this information from." However, it seemed like they only found out about it in recent years. Otherwise, they wouldn't have waited until now. "I think it's because we can't afford this ancient treasure. Since that's the case, you've helped us and you're so powerful, I'll give this item to you. I only ask that you take care of my daughter in the future and don't let her be bullied." Mother Yi said with a sorrowful expression. She had brought disaster upon herself but was powerless to protect herself. It could only be said that it was their fate to end up like this. "Is this what you wrote in that bloody letter?" Bai Qingqing asked. "That's right. I told my daughter to give this item to your master. Keeping this item will only bring disaster to her." Mother Yi said, "Even if we kill everyone this time, there will be people who will know about it in the future. When that time comes, who will be able to save her?" Hearing this, Bai Qingqing thought for a moment and said, "I understand. I'll report this to my master. Thank you very much," she said, then helped her husband out of the room. On the other side, Du Fan and Qi Kong raised their qi and soared into the air, attracting the attention of the cultivators in the valley. Dozens of cultivators surrounded them with swords. Unfortunately, the two of them were stronger than everyone else. Before the cultivators could get close, they were sent flying by their powerful auras and sword qi. One after another, they fell outside. For a moment, cries of surprise and screams of agony rang out in the air. After the cultivators fell to the ground, their qi and blood were in turmoil due to the powerful impact. They spat out mouthfuls of blood. "Go! All of you, go! Capture them!" The middle-aged man shouted angrily. He pointed his sword at the sky and waved it, ordering the cultivators to surround them. However, due to the great disparity in strength and the fact that the cultivators were sent flying, the remaining cultivators naturally didn't dare to go forward when they knew that they were weaker than the other party. "Those two are much stronger than us. If we go up there, we'll just be courting death." "That's right. I can't even get close to them." A low voice was heard, and the middle-aged man's face darkened. He glanced around and snorted coldly. In the next moment, he leaped into the air, and the sharp sword in his hand shot out a beam of sword qi towards Du Fan and Qi Kong. "How dare you follow me here? You're courting death." Du Fan roared angrily, and his figure dashed forward. However, the sword energy and his figure were repelled by a wind blade from the fan in Du Fan's hand. Du Fan lost his balance and retreated a dozen steps in the air. A powerful aura surged towards the middle-aged man, and the blood and qi in his body churned. A mouthful of blood rose from his chest and reached his throat, but he swallowed it back down. However, he did not dare to attack again. Instead, he retreated in horror. Whether one was strong or weak, one would know after exchanging blows. His opponent was much younger than him, but his strength was far above his. If he were to face him head-on, he would only be throwing his life away. Chapter 4073. Du Fan and Qi Kong looked in the direction of the middle-aged man's shout, only to see a black-robed man with a head full of white hair standing under a tree below. However, he had a childish face that did not match his white hair, and the gloomy aura around him was extremely strong. Qi Kong did not give that person a chance to escape. With a strike of the sharp sword in his hand, the long sword flew out like an arrow towards the middle-aged man at a speed that was too fast for one's ears to cover. The sharp sword Qi carried with it a murderous aura as it came from behind. The middle-aged man only felt a chill on his back, and his heart jumped. He instinctively turned around to look, only to see the long sword coming towards him. The powerful aura that the sharp sword carried with it caused him to be unable to move even if he wanted to. He could only watch as the sword flew towards his forehead. Xiao! A sharp gust of wind pierced through the air, and the swishing sound made one's heart tremble. Just as the sword was about a meter away from the middle-aged man, the figure of the white-haired man below shot out like a flash of light, instantly appearing in mid-air. A strong air current shot out from the white-haired man's body, and the air current that was visible to the naked eye blocked Qi Kang's flying sword. The air blade on the sharp sword collided with the air current released by the white-haired man, and the fight between the two air currents caused the long sword to be unable to get any closer. However, it did not retreat even half a centimeter. The hands of the originally gloomy white-haired man that were blocking in front of his body trembled slightly. When the air current that he had gathered in his hands was unable to repel the long sword, his expression changed. As the surrounding air current surged, the black robes on his body fluttered loudly. His white hair also fluttered messily in the air, and a trace of cold sweat gradually seeped out from his forehead. No one knew that at this moment, his heart was filled with fear. He did not expect that the people under the command of the ghost Dr. Fingzhou would be so strong, so powerful. Even with his strength, it was still difficult for him to resist. At this moment, he finally deeply understood why the name of the ghost Dr. Fingzhou had spread throughout the world. Whenever this name was mentioned, people would feel reverence in their hearts. The middle-aged man was protected behind him, so he didn't see his master break out in cold sweat. His master's expression changed drastically. He was still laughing behind them. Let's see how you can still be so arrogant. Once my master makes his move, he will definitely make it so that you will not be able to return. Ha 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 ha. Pfft. Before he could finish his laughter, he was struck by an air current. A mouthful of blood gushed out from his throat, and his entire body fell from the air. Bang! Ah! He let out a blood-curdling scream as his body smashed into the ground below, sending gravel flying in all directions and filling the air with dust and smoke. He coughed a few times and tried to sit up, but when he moved, the bones in his body seemed to have loosened. He couldn't stand up for a long time and could only lie on the ground, panting heavily. Pooh! At this moment, the white-haired man in the air was also sent flying by the sword Qi. The sharp sword pierced through his body, and blood splattered from the sky. He lost his balance and fell backwards. Fresh blood seeped out from his wound, soaking his black robes, but no one could see it. Since you're not a match for a divine king, then you're not a match for us, Qi Kong said in a low voice. His gaze contained a powerful pressure as he looked at the white-haired man. Chapter 4074. The white-haired man wiped the blood from the corner of his lips and glanced at the hole in his shoulder. His expression grew even colder. No one noticed that his hand was trembling under his sleeve. The sword had pierced through his shoulder and injured the veins in his arm. His hand could not muster any strength and was even trembling slightly. This was only one of the ghost doctor's subordinates and not even the ghost doctor Fingzhou himself. If the ghost doctor Fingzhou were to come here personally, then... His heart was filled with regret at the thought of this. If they had known earlier, they would have made their move earlier. No matter what method they had to use, they would have found out what they wanted from the Yi family as soon as possible. Now that they had missed their chance, they would never be able to get their hands on that item. If they were to continue fighting, they might even lose their lives. His heart pounded at the thought of this and he scanned his surroundings. If they could not protect this valley, they would have no choice but to abandon it. Trying to escape. Du Fan, who had been observing him, raised his brows and laughed icily. He gently fanned himself with the fan in his hand and said, "Both of us are here. If we allow you to escape, we don't need to show our faces anymore." Just then, Bai Qingqing had escorted the Yi family couple to a spot not too far away. When she saw the middle-aged man lying motionless on the ground, Madame Ye's eyes filled with hatred and murderous intent. "It's him. It's him." It was this person who had skinned her husband's face right in front of her back then. Every time she recalled that cruel and bloody scene, her heart felt as if it had been pierced by a knife. Bai Qingqing was slightly shaken. Her gaze fell upon the man and before she could react, she saw Madame Yi supporting Father Yi as they quickly walked forward. After helping him to sit down, Madame Yi spat hatefully, "It's him. He was the one who had skinned your face all those years ago. I want him to have a taste of this bone-piercing pain that's worse than death." She took out a dagger from somewhere, but she didn't slash at his face. Instead, she used the dagger to stab the person lying on the ground in his dantian. "Ah!" A shrill cry of agony filled the air. The man's body arched from the intense pain. Just as he was about to slap her with his hand, he was hit by a blast of air from Bai Qingqing and fell to the ground again. Someone come quickly. Men!" He lay on the ground and shouted, calling for the surrounding cultivators to come forward. Unexpectedly, a few cultivators mustered up their courage and wanted to step forward. However, the moment they stepped forward, they were killed by Bai Qingqing's sword energy. There were many people around, but no one dared to step forward. These people were not people who valued friendship and righteousness. At the critical moment of life and death, they only cared about themselves. Why would they use their own lives to exchange for the survival of others? Thus, when they saw that they were simply no match for their opponent, they gave up on the person on the ground. "Ha ha 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 ha. You also have this day, you also have this day." Yimu laughed crazily. The dagger in her hand stabbed again. With a swoosh, it pierced into his wrist. With one stab, the wrist was almost cut off. "Ah!" A sharp and despairing scream rang out once again, echoing in the air. His body was twitching, his face was as pale as paper, and his lower body was already covered in blood. Chapter 4075. Bai Qingqing watched from the side. With her around, none of the surrounding cultivators dared to step forward. All of them shuddered at the sight of the bloody scene. They had killed many people before, but this was the first time a person was killed by 1,000 cuts. Furthermore, the scene of his face being skinned was bloody and cruel. Some of them could not help but think of the things that the person on the ground had done to others in the past. As the saying goes, every dog has its day. He had treated others so cruelly and treated them like fish on a chopping board. Now, he was being treated the same way and experiencing the same cruelty that others had experienced. For a time, the cultivators who saw this scene felt a chill run down their spines. At the same time, they also felt extremely complicated. The screams had become weak and fearful. The middle-aged man trembled on the ground. His body twitched from every cut. The pain made him hover between life and death. After fainting, he would be woken up by the pain. The torture repeated over and over again, making him suffer a fate worse than death. Father Yi sat back and watched this scene. Tears welled up in his eyes. The white-haired man glanced down and narrowed his eyes. He looked at Du Fan and Chi Kong, who were preventing him from escaping. He gritted his teeth. He could only fight again. Right now, he could only fight with all his strength in exchange for a chance to survive. Seeing the spiritual energy on the man's body exploding and attacking them, Du Fan and Chi Kong looked at each other. Du Fan said, "There's no use in keeping this person alive. Let's send him on his way." "Okay." Chi Kong replied. In the next moment, he and Du Fan attacked together. As they released a powerful aura, the aura that soared into the sky and attacked the white-haired man with killing intent. In the aura visible to the naked eye, two figures flashed out like lightning. The thunderous attacks came from two different directions. When the white-haired man saw the two auras coming towards him, he wanted to dodge. However, he was suppressed by the two powerful auras, causing his body to freeze and be unable to move. It was also at that moment that two loud bangs of impact landed on the white-haired man's body at a speed that was too fast for one to cover their ears. In an instant, they broke through his defenses and exploded on his body. Bang bang. Ah! Two loud noises were heard, and blood splashed out. That person screamed, but his scream was covered by the sound of the explosion. The people below only saw two huge bloody holes in the body of that person in the air. His whole body was struck down from the air, and heavily smashed on the ground below. Boom! A loud sound rang out as he crashed into the ground. A powerful shock wave spread out in all directions. The surrounding cultivators all stared in shock, their eyes filled with fear. It was also at this moment that someone saw that the situation was not good. When he wanted to escape, he found that his legs were weak and his body was trembling uncontrollably. He thought that he was frightened by this scene, so he took a deep breath to calm himself down. However, when he tried to circulate the aura in his body, he found that he could not circulate the spiritual energy in his body. Chapter 4076. Because of this sound, someone tried to raise his chi, and his expression changed drastically. Me too. I can't raise my spiritual chi. What's going on? What's going on? Hiss. My legs are so weak. It's as if all the strength in my body has been sucked out. Are we drugged? For a moment, panicked and aghast voices filled with fear and helplessness rang out. The cultivators who were originally standing fell to the ground one after another, unable to muster the slightest bit of strength in their bodies. There were also people who looked at the cultivators who had fallen to the ground in shock and asked, "What's going on? What's wrong with all of you?" Those who were still standing tried to raise their spiritual chi and realized that there was nothing wrong with them. Seeing them in such a state, they did not dare to be careless. They checked again and finally confirmed that those who were still standing were all fine. Is this tendon weakening powder? No. No, it's impossible that tendon weakening powder can't raise our spiritual chi. It's impossible that we don't know that we've been drugged. What is this? How can this be? Someone fell to the ground and muttered, his face as pale as a sheet. Of course, I want none of you to escape. As Bai Qingqing spoke, she pointed the long sword in her hand diagonally to the ground. Her spiritual chi surged, and the sword energy swept out in all directions. It was so fast, and the sword energy was so sharp that none of the cultivators could escape before they died under her sword. Ah! Hiss! For a moment, screams and cries filled the air, and the thick smell of blood permeated the air. On the ground, corpses were lying on the ground, and some of them still had fear and unwillingness on their faces even when they died. Oh no! Run! Some of the cultivators who could still run took to their heels, trying to escape from this place that was filled with the aura of death. However, Bai Qingqing's pursuit was swift and ruthless. The sharp sword in her hand shot out sword chi that attacked from all directions. The sword's shadow flashed through the air like a ray of light. Wherever it passed, screams of agony could be heard. There were more and more corpses on the ground, and the aura of death became more and more intense. The valley was filled with blood and corpses. Whether they could escape or not, they could not escape death in the end. On the other side, Du Fan and Qi Kong descended from the sky. Du Fan looked at the dying white-haired man on the ground and shook his head. He gently fanned himself with the fan in his hand and said, "Look at you, of all people, why did you have to provoke him? Why did you have to provoke someone who is related to us?" The white-haired man on the ground had blood flowing out of his mouth. His hands moved as he struggled to get up, but he didn't have the strength to do so. He could only lie on the ground and look at the two people standing in front of him, looking at his miserable state. "However, it's your honor to die in our hands." As Du Fan spoke, he waved the fan in his hand and was about to kill the white-haired man. At this moment, the white-haired man lying on the ground had a resolute and ruthless look in his eyes. The spiritual energy in his body suddenly surged, and in the blink of an eye, it exploded with a loud bang. "Quick, dodge!" Du Fan's expression changed as he cried out in alarm. At the same time, he quickly pulled Qi Kong back and fell to the ground. Boom! With a loud bang, a powerful airflow suddenly exploded, and blood and flesh splattered everywhere. Everything within 10 meters was affected by the powerful airflow and was destroyed into ashes. Bang, bang, bang.